Hey guys, it's Taylor Shinal, class of 2025. I'm reporting in from the Serengeti in Tanzania. I'm here with a few other scholars and some people that I've met along the gap year. We are currently in a parked safari car waiting for about 1,000 wildebeest to cross the road ahead of us. The Great Migration's going on right now, so that's been really incredible to witness. And we've also seen tons of other incredible forms of wildlife like giraffes, hippos. We've come essentially face to face with multiple lions today, which was pretty insane. And tomorrow we move on to the Ngorongoro crater to continue exploring. So super excited for that.
Welcome to Catalyze. I'm your host, Sarah O'Carroll. This week, we have a special segment featuring the gap year. You'll first hear from Emile Charles from the class of 24, who shares what it was like to be on a gap year disrupted by the coronavirus pandemic. He first told this story in Pecha style during our virtual final selection weekend to an audience of Morehead-Cain finalists. We also asked our current gap year scholars to give us some quick takes of what life looks like for them right now as they're scattered throughout the world. Just as you heard at the beginning from Taylor, you'll hear from a couple others at the end of the episode, accompanied with music by Nicholas Byrne from the class of 19, who is also our next guest on Catalyze. Okay, here's Emile.
When I first got to Cape Town, I had no idea how to fit in. I had a hospital intern job, but often got out early and had entire afternoons off. I had left home looking for a change, and now, during the city's vibrant spring, I too felt filled with new life. I was realizing that a year abroad meant more than just time away from home. It was space to think about who I was and who I wanted to grow into. I learned at first that growth is small. While not all that great, cashew chicken stir-fry was the first meal I was actually proud of. From there, my cooking skills grew easily, but at other times, growth felt hard. I was navigating language, cultural, and racial barriers, forcing my way across some and not being sure how to get through others. At the hospital, I wasn't given much of an orientation, plopped in with students years ahead of me. I was often assumed to be of colored descent or to translate from Zulu or Xhosa I didn't know. I got real-life experiences as a liaison between doctors, children, and families, and began to build my foundational skills in public health. My learning consisted of a lot of medicine, mainly bones, joints, and chronic pains, but that wasn't all. I learned how to enjoy my personal time too, getting the best sleep of my life, catching up with new and old friends, and falling endlessly into great books. I even celebrated South Africa's Rugby World Cup win, something that hadn't happened in over 20 years. On the day of, I borrowed a friend's Protea shirt and wore the country's national flower proudly. Continuing to meet people, I made sure to take down names and numbers. This helped. I caught invites to weekends away and even family vacations. The most beautiful of these was to the West Coast National Park, finding myself in a kayak on a white sand beach with flamingos I didn't know existed in this part of the world. My time in South Africa also offered me space for cultural and historical learning. I spent time in Johannesburg, visiting the Constitutional Court and Apartheid Museum. There was a reckoning that had seemed to occur. The evidence was everywhere. Things weren't perfect, but I still came to better understand where I was and what this incredible country had to show the world. Coming home for just a month, I squeezed in a trip to my father's Caribbean home. I connected with deep roots that had long been sleeping, but these seemed to wake right up with roadside corn and daily breakfast plantains. I felt stronger in my identities, but was still spun around by the diversity of the globe. Those few weeks in Grenada were amazing. It was warm, calm, and felt like a home that missed me too. I took trips to some of my dad's childhood sites, his mother's grave, and the fruit farm he's managed for as long as I can remember. I learned how to be back with family, and now live with my new life experiences. I planned to leave in a few weeks from Malawi and wasn't quite sure how to prepare. Back across the Atlantic, and at times with junior scholar Sita Tayal, I started yet another new routine. I was working at UNC Project Malawi, a global health collaboration between UNC-Chapel Hill and the Malawi Ministry of Health. I live with people not only from Malawi, but from around the world too. Kenya, the Netherlands, India, and Italy. Again, I could see public health systems in the works and got to engage with them fully. Unfortunately, my time was cut short, and I had to leave Malawi early with unresolved feelings and friendships. Though, despite my early departure, the most important part of a gap year still happened. a crazy hair decision. During the late night before my flight, I spontaneously got dreadlocks, and when my dad picked me up from the airport, he barely recognized me. I felt it was more than just my hair that had changed. At home, I tried to stay plugged in as things shut down, but instead was forced to brood inside with depressing news as a constant background. The public health nightmare didn't seem real, and I knew that all my spaces of months past had drastically changed. I was stuck as the pandemic continued to rage and the country's tensions further boiled. On May 25th, I remember hearing George Floyd's name for the first time. In the days after, I attended protests in Raleigh and Durham. It didn't seem like Chapel Hill was rallying, so I decided to, and soon helped fill the streets with people and their voices. This organizing work came about organically, but I soon realized that if I was the one creating the flyers and demanding change, I had to follow through with the harder work too. My protesting and activism continued, filling the rest of my summer and introducing me to even new ideas, people, and parts of myself. As I settled on my UNC fall plans, I realized there was a world in which I hadn't done all the things I did over the last year. I never expected myself to be in a South African hospital, on an international health team, or at the front of a march, but my year off had given me time for it all. Now, looking back on my gap year and forward to the rest of my time in college, I feel amazed. I recognize that there is immense potential and opportunity, but when fully supported by the Morehead-Cain Foundation, this only becomes more profound. Though before I can even speak on the actual 4 years in the program, it was during my time before that my passion and skills were truly developed. After my first week in Cape Town, I wrote the following for a Morehead-Cain reflection. This past week is certainly the start of a journey, and I am continuously learning things throughout. All of these lessons are shaping my experiences, and the more I learn, the more I'm able to find and be at home. I chose to take a gap year to learn and think about myself deeply, to take a break from the whirlwind of school and pressures of traditional education. I urge you all too to think about how and why you should grow. How can you develop into the person you want to be? What do you need to push you? If you're anything like me, an international gap year might just be the answer.
Thank you for listening to Catalyze. I'm Sarah O'Carroll, and that was Emile Charles from the class of 24. To finish out the episode, here are a few more messages from our current gap year scholars.
As I walk up and down the aisles of Ljubljana's Sunday market, I trace the same footsteps my grandmother paved over 80 years ago as a little girl. As I glance around, I see fresh Slovenian sausage being stuffed behind one stand by the local butcher, a sight contrasted by the succulent aromas of apple and cherry strudel being sold by a neighboring merchant. The buzz of negotiating customers is cut by a loud ding-dong, which rings through the city. Squinting into the distance, I see the clock tower, then the cathedral just across the river, where my grandmother grew up attending Mass. And just besides that is her preschool, where she went for kindergarten. Wow, I think to myself. What a beautiful life she lived just before the war.
I'm reporting in here from the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. So we're about 60 meters underground at the moment in the tomb of Hafra. So we had to climb a few tunnels to get down here. The air is quite thin, and it is way hotter than it is outside. And so that's been really cool, though, to be inside of a structure that was built nearly 4,500 years ago. Also, standing outside of the pyramids, it's hard to explain how absolutely gigantic these structures are. They're about 500 feet tall, and every single block that they're made of is almost as tall as I am. So pretty remarkable. Definitely understanding why this is one of the 7 wonders of the world.
This is Asher. I'm at Loch Seamounth Beach right now in Scotland. The North Sea is nuking. We've got 7-footers. It's the biggest I've ever seen it. Water temperature is around 48 degrees, so I've got my wetsuit on. Hi, Gus. Hey, how are you, man? That was Gus. He is a stand-up paddleboarder that I met a couple weeks ago. After this sesh this morning, I'm going to head back home, and around 10 a.m. I'll be driving to a farm to interview a client about the noise pollution problems he's having.
This is Noah Gottlieb, and I'm currently standing at the top of Park City's highest ski slope. This being my first time skiing out west, I'm mentally preparing myself for a successful descent. Fingers crossed. All right, well, I'm going to gaze out at these breathtaking snow-capped mountains spread before me one last time, take one more frosty breath in through my nose, and push myself over the ridge.